close your eyes for a second. Not literally, keep watching, but imagine you just woke up. You're staring at the ceiling. Light is coming through the window. You feel fine. Now here's the strange part. Somewhere between 6 and 8 hours just passed. 6 to 8 hours of your life gone. Not blurry, not hazy, gone. You have zero memory of most of it. You have no idea what your body did. No idea what your brain processed. No idea what decisions it quietly made on your behalf, while you had absolutely no say in the matter. And the thing is, your ancient brain didn't just let that happen. It fought for it. Hard. Why this is stranger than it sounds. Think about what vulnerability actually means. Really means. Not the word. The physical state. You are unconscious. You cannot run. You cannot fight. You cannot even scream. 4, 6 to 8 hours on the cold ground of a prehistoric world that very actively wanted to kill you. You chose to go completely, totally offline. Every predator that ever hunted your ancestors knew this window existed. Lions knew it. Hyenas knew it. The species that didn't survive, they made the wrong calls in that window. And yet, sleep didn't vanish. It didn't evolve away. It didn't get replaced with something safer. Your brain doubled down on it, defended it, built entire biological systems to drag you into it whether you consent it or not. The question isn't why you sleep. Science answered that years ago. The question is why you can't remember what happens when you do. Why the brain, which spent 300,000 years engineering your survival, decided the most important hours of your biological existence should be completely invisible to you. That's what we're getting into today. The survival paradox of unconsciousness. The ancient cost-benefit calculation. Let's start with the part that doesn't make any sense. From a pure survival standpoint, sleep is a catastrophic evolutionary liability. You stop moving. You stop watching. You stop processing threat signals. Your muscles go partially paralyzed. Yes, actually paralyzed will get there, and your conscious awareness just switches off. For an ancient human, someone who is genuinely, regularly being hunted, this should have been eliminated from the gene pool almost immediately. The sleepers should have died. The vigilant ones should have survived. Sleep should be a relic of something that got fixed. But here's what actually happened. The opposite. The ancient brain didn't reduce sleep. It protected it at almost any biological cost. Why? Because the things sleep does for the brain are so essential, so completely non-negotiable for basic function, that dying awake was statistically more likely than dying asleep. A brain that doesn't sleep degrades. First, your reaction time collapses. Your threat detection circuits misfire. You start making decisions that, on a prehistoric savanna, get you killed within days. The predator outside your sleeping body is a threat. But the predator of progressive cognitive collapse from sleeplessness is a guaranteed death sentence. This is essentially your ancient brain doing risk management, weighing probable death by leopard against certain death by neurological shutdown, and choosing the leopard, which, honestly, tracks with how most of us approach our problems today. The group survival solution. Ancient humans didn't sleep alone. They slept in tight social clusters with rotating watch systems, someone always conscious at the perimeter. The group itself became the immune system against the vulnerability of individual sleep. But here's what that meant for the brain. If the group keeps you physically safe while you sleep, the brain's only remaining job in that window is internal. And the brain takes that job extraordinarily seriously. What the brain actually does in the dark. The nightly biological maintenance cycle. While you are completely unaware, while you have zero conscious access to any of this, your brain is running what can only be described as a full system emergency protocol. It is sorting every experience from the day, deciding what gets compressed into long-term memory and what gets deleted. It is scrubbing metabolic waste products, actual toxic proteins, from the cerebrospinal fluid using a drainage system that only fully activates when you're unconscious. It is rebalancing your emotional threat calibration, essentially resetting how sensitively your fear circuits fire tomorrow. And it is doing all of this without telling you a single thing about it. Take a second and actually notice something. Right now, as you're watching this, Your brain is passively doing maintenance on itself. Low level. Background. The fact that you're not consciously aware of it doesn't mean it isn't happening. Sleep is just when it turns that process all the way up to maximum and locks you out of the room. Why you can't watch it happen. Here's where it gets strange. The reason you can't remember most of sleep isn't a malfunction. It isn't a limitation of the brain's recording capacity. It's a deliberate architectural choice. During deep, slow-wave sleep, the most restorative phase, your hippocampus, the structure responsible for forming conscious memories, is actively suppressed. The brain doesn't just fail to record what's happening. It disables the recording system on purpose. Why would it do that? Because the consolidation process, the reorganization of memory, the pruning of emotional charge from traumatic experiences, the structural rewiring of neural pathways, requires the cortex to operate without interference from the continuous input of new conscious experience. Your brain needs you out of the room to fix the room. Imagine for a second you're a prehistoric human. You had a brutal day. You saw something die. You ran from something larger than you. You made decisions under cortisol, so high it was practically structural. If your brain let you stay conscious and present for the overnight filing process, reliving every terror, re-experiencing every spike of fear while it's sorted, you'd wake up more traumatized than when you close your eyes. The blackout is the mercy. The paralysis you were never supposed to know about. REM atonia, the deliberate shutdown. During REM sleep, the stage where the most vivid dreaming occurs, your brain does something that, if you were aware of it, would terrify you. It sends a signal down your spinal cord that chemically paralyzes your voluntary muscles. Almost completely. Arms, legs, core. This is called REM atonia, and it is not a bug. It is one of the most elegant survival solutions your ancient brain ever engineered. Here is what REM atonia solved. Your brain during REM isn't quiet. It's extraordinarily active, arguably more active than when you're awake. It is running full simulations, playing back threat scenarios, rehearsing responses to predators, to conflict, to catastrophic loss. It is essentially a training ground, operating at full intensity while your body is completely offline. Without the paralysis, you would act out every single one of those simulations. Every chase, every fight, every fall from height, in the middle of a prehistoric camp, in complete darkness. And before you think that sounds fine, before you think, okay, but I'd probably just twitch a bit, there's actually a sleep disorder called REM sleep behavior disorder where the paralysis mechanism fails. And people do exactly that. They act out their dreams. Fully. People have punched walls, leapt out of bed, seriously injured themselves and partners, all while technically asleep. The paralysis is not a minor detail. It is a structural requirement of the entire system. What ancient humans understood about this? Nothing. Your ancestors had no framework for any of this. They felt the paralysis when they woke from nightmares, that terrifying moment of trying to move and finding your body unresponsive. They interpreted it as spirits, as the dead pressing down on the chest, as something external attacking them from the dark. Sleep paralysis hallucinations, the figures at the edge of vision, the weight on the chest, the overwhelming presence. Those experiences appear in the mythologies of nearly every ancient culture on Earth. Not because ancient humans were superstitious by nature, but because they were encountering a real, visceral, deeply disturbing neurological event and building the only explanatory framework they had available. The demon on your chest in the old folklore. That's your brain's paralysis circuit running slightly too long past waking. That's it. That's the whole haunting. When the system broke, the stakes were total. The evolutionary pressure that made sleep non-negotiable. Here's where we hit the brutal threshold. Because everything we've covered so far, the paralysis, the memory suppression, the cognitive maintenance, it all sounds elegant in the abstract. But the pressure that built those systems wasn't abstract. It was extinction level. At multiple points in human prehistory, genuinely multiple documented population bottlenecks. The total number of breeding humans on Earth dropped to somewhere between 1,000 and 10,000 individuals. The entire genetic ancestor pool of every human alive today, every 8 billion of us, pass through windows that narrow. In those windows, the species that didn't sleep efficiently, didn't consolidate threat memory correctly, didn't emotionally regulate through the night cycle. They made errors. Compounding cognitive errors. Every sleepless night degraded the quality of every decision the next day. And in a world where a single wrong decision, wrong direction, wrong prey, wrong season to migrate could wipe out an entire family group, cognitive degradation was a species-level catastrophe. The ancestors who survived those bottlenecks had brains that had optimized sleep so aggressively that the body would literally steal it. Microsleeps, involuntary lapses, priority override systems, rather than let the human stay fully awake past the point of functional collapse. Your brain's insistence on sleep, its refusal to negotiate, its complete indifference to your to-do list or your screen time or your deadlines. That's not a weakness. That is the single most battle-tested survival protocol in the history of your species. You probably felt the edge of this. That moment around hour 20, 22 of no sleep, where something goes slightly wrong with your perception. Colors are slightly off. Sounds have a lag. You misread something simple 3 times before it resolves. That's not tiredness. That's the beginning of what killed your ancestors when the system failed. That's the edge of the cliff your brain has been dragging you back from since before you were born. The memory blackout as species-level protection. And so the memory gap, the complete absence of conscious recall for most of your sleeping hours, makes a different kind of sense now. It isn't a flaw in the system. It is the system protecting the system. If you were conscious during the overnight reorganization, if you could watch yourself dreaming, feel yourself being reprogrammed, observe the emotional weight being stripped from traumatic memories, the conscious observation itself would corrupt the process. The act of watching changes what's being watched. The brain knows this. It has always known this. The blackout is not the absence of the brain. The blackout is the brain at its most intensely present. What you wake up as and why that matters. The integration. What sleep actually built. Every time you wake up, you're the output of an overnight manufacturing process you didn't design and can't remember. The version of you that opens your eyes in the morning is not the same configuration that closed them the night before. Memories have been consolidated. Emotional charge has been recalibrated. Motor patterns refined. Immune responses updated. Threat assessment circuits reset to a more accurate baseline. The metabolic waste products that were quietly accumulating in your neural tissue, the ones increasingly linked to neurodegeneration, have been flushed. You were repaired, while you weren't watching, by something inside you that has been doing this, uninterrupted, unobserved, unnamed, for hundreds of thousands of years. Here's the thought experiment that changes how this lands. If you could watch it, if you could have full conscious access to every second of your sleeping brain's activity, would you want to? Think about that carefully. Because the answer, if you actually follow it through, is probably no. Some processes work precisely because they happen in the dark. Some repairs only hold if you don't pick at them while they're setting. The modern alienation, why this feels strange now. The reason this feels strange, the reason you feel faintly alienated from your own sleep, faintly suspicious of the hours you can't account for, is that you live in a culture that has declared unconsciousness a problem to be optimized. Sleep trackers, sleep scores, REM percentages, sleep debt calculations. Your ancient brain didn't have any of that. It had darkness, cold, the sounds of the group breathing around it, and a system so deeply trust-built over geological time that no amount of anxiety about it could interfere. The brain didn't need you to understand sleep to run it. It ran it perfectly for 300,000 years before you had any vocabulary for it all. The alienation isn't from sleep. The alienation is from trusting a system that doesn't ask for your input. The brain decided a long time ago that this was a reasonable trade. 6 to 8 hours of your complete absence, in exchange for a version of you the next morning that is sharper, more emotionally accurate, more physically intact, and more likely to survive whatever comes next. It didn't consult you. It didn't need to. It's been making this deal successfully since before your species had a name for the dark. And honestly, maybe it's for the best.